Welcome to the debate. If you look back at a traditional rock band figuring out royalties, there was this very visible physical reality to it. Four people sweating in a garage, hacking away at instruments, and just slicing the pie four ways.
Right, exactly. You could just look across the room and literally see who was contributing what.
Yeah, but jump into the modern landscape of hip-hop, trap, and drill, and that physical room is just gone. I mean, we're dealing with this digital assembly line of remote features, leased beats, and asynchronous creation. So today we're digging into the documentation on producer split sheets.
Right.
And we're asking a central question. Is the industry standard 50-50 publishing split between producers and vocalists still the most equitable baseline? Or does it, completely fail the reality of modern fragmented collaboration? I mean, I'm of the mind that the 50-50 baseline perfectly reflects the foundational duality of hip-hop composition.
And I come at it a bit differently, I think, because when you have highly modular remote collaborations, forcing a rigid 50-50 split just, it obscures who actually did the work. We really need more granular, contribution-based models today.
I hear the appeal of granular splits, I really do. But structurally, the 50-50 split is, it's the only thing keeping the industry moving. In contemporary hip-hop, the producer is often the sole architect.
Wait, the sole architect? That's a big claim.
It is, but think about it. They program the drums, design the bass lines, and map out the entire progression before a vocalist ever even hears a single note. It creates this clean division between the music and the lyrics, and more importantly, it acts as release insurance.
Release insurance? What do you mean by that?
Right. So downstream performing rights organizations like your ASCAPs and BMIs, they handle millions of microtransactions. If 5 writers are bickering over a 2% difference on a split sheet, the PRO simply freezes the money in an escrow account.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Nobody gets paid until the math equals exactly 100%. The flow of capital requires clear administrative blueprints. Think of it this way. The beat is the architectural foundation of the house, and the lyrics are the interior design. The foundation inherently demands half the equity.
I have to jump in here because your house analogy falls apart completely when we look at how these tracks are actually finished. Like if we're talking about Nashville's one-word, one-third philosophy, anyone in the room shares equally.
Sure, because they're in the room together.
Right. The collaborative energy shapes the product. But if a singer comes into your house, hates the layout, tears down the load-bearing walls, and forces the producer to completely chop and rebuild the beat around their new vocals, well, that is no longer interior design. That is a massive co-renovation.
Okay, that is a fair point about co-renovation. But even if the walls are moved, the core utility, the very ground the house sits on, it started with the producer.
But consider the material reality of these complex arrangements. The documentation highlights a very common scenario. Say an artist leases a non-exclusive beat online for $30.
Happens all the time.
Exactly. They take that basic loop into the studio, an in-house engineer completely chops the tempo, and an external writer provides a melodic hook. If you default to a 50% producer share for what was originally just a $30 seed, you are ignoring the massive collaborative effort required to finish that derivative work.
Well, I'm still not convinced that invalidates the baseline. Because without that $30 loop, the song simply doesn't exist. It is the genesis.
You bring up that $30 leased beat, which perfectly exposes how fractured creation is today. But that fragmentation is about to get 1,000 times more complicated.
You're talking about AI.
Oh, absolutely. What if that $30 beat was generated by an algorithm? We're operating in the emerging 2026 paradigm now. Supply chain standards like track origin and C2PA are essentially acting as digital watermarks to cryptographically prove a human actually made the track.
Right, which forces a level of transparency we just haven't seen before.
Exactly. Granular metadata is now mandatory. If a producer uses an AI to generate the drum loop, that metadata exposes it. You can't claim a full 50% human effort if a machine did half your work.
Yeah, I see where you're going.
A rigid 50-50 assumption completely fails to represent the actual human creative equity on the track.
Look, we are definitely looking at a system under immense pressure from AI, but I maintain that despite these technological shifts, the 50-50 split remains the most reliable administrative blueprint for a highly reactive industry.
Even with the AI factor?
Even then. It prevents that financial paralysis we talked about and provides a necessary, standardized starting point for negotiations.
And I still insist that complex, asynchronous collaboration requires bespoke equity distribution. You have to trace the actual human effort.
Well, whether you're a traditionalist splitting it right down the middle, or you're pulling out a calculator to figure out who wrote the hi-hat part, we do entirely agree on one absolute non-negotiable duty.
Oh, for sure. You have to execute a written split sheet before uploading to digital service providers.
Yes.
Absolutely. If you don't get the paperwork to reflect reality before distribution, you open yourself up to DMCA takedowns, meaning platforms will literally pull your song offline due to copyright disputes.
Yeah, you risk losing your creative momentum entirely. So get it in writing.
Truly.
Exactly. Well, we'll leave it to you, the listener, to decide which philosophy best protects creative equity. There is much more to explore regarding intellectual property rights in the source material. But the next time you hear a massive hip-hop release, ask yourself, are you listening to a perfectly halved architectural blueprint or a fragmented mosaic of remote creators?